I still got to go out in a tree later again.
Oh, are you a hunter?
Yeah,
What do you hunt? I mean,
yeah,
deer, obviously, but
yeah. Deer, turkey. If a coyote presents itself again in the near future, I'll take that out. I had one come out in front of me a week ago, but he was just out of bow shot.
yeah. Is that what you mostly hunt with? Is bow?
I prefer bow, but as the season gets later, I'll probably bring the rifle out. I killed a doe a few months ago on off a kill permit for the deer around here destroyed about $2,000 worth of soybean seeds,
Mm-hmm.
and I took a 400 yard shot and dropped the sucker.
Wow. With what?
Yeah,
What were you using?
a 7 mil,
Nice.
so nice and flat.
That's the odds of. Are you? You're in North Carolina, right?
I'm in Virginia. I'm in
Oh.
Spotsylvania. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's even crazier. It's hard to imagine an area that has a 400-yard open, shot.
So when I bought my house down here, um, I saw two properties that I wanted to look at. One was it was an 8.5 acre property that was also on a lake, but the house wasn't big enough. The other property, it was a 3 acre plot with a house that was big enough. Well, I'm surrounded by 500 acres of tree line and ag field, so I was like, this is it. And I've been talking to the neighbor, and she's willing to sell me about another 8.5 acres.
Nice.
So we have probably a 40 to 60 acre ag field, about 500 yards behind the house.
Oh wow, nice. That's what every hunter wants.
Hmm.
Nice little feed bed out there.
So I gotta ask, so you know John Williams?
Yeah, I do from Anglico.
Yeah, yeah. Him and I were in Bahrain together.
Okay.
Do you know Hiram LaChapelle?
I have met him once or twice. I know of him because of the MOS, but I've only
Yep.
met him a couple times.
Okay. Yeah. Just friends.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I was over in Bahrain with both of them.
Bahrain, man, that's So we can just go ahead and kick this off. We'll just call this a start. Bahrain is like I have I have a couple rugs I bought at the Gold Souk in Bahrain.
Okay.
That's one of those places if you've never been, I think in the Marine Corps, and someone's like you're going to Bahrain, you're like, oh, that's gonna suck, and I guess it maybe kind of does, but it's actually not a bad area.
So my only real experience with Bahrain was when I was on the Mew, and that was back in 2010.
Oh,
And I
okay.
mean, and um, I was sitting in Bulgaria at the time, and I was thinking, where am I going to go next? Because I had just gotten back from a deployment prior to this one, went on a UDP, worst deployment ever. I mean, UDPs suck.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Romania with the B Surf rotation, the Black Sea Rotational Force, and I'm thinking, where can I go next? And I was thinking, well, I could do EOTG, or maybe I could jump on one of those liaison teams, the Georgian liaison teams. And I was just thinking, what's going to be best for my career?
Mm-hmm.
So I hit a buddy of mine up. He was the first sergeant at the time, Chris Singley, and I served with him at SOI East. Just solid dude, solid leader, one of the best Marines I've ever met in my life, and just a guy who's wise above his years. And so I asked him, I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking of going to these two places. What do you think career wise? What should I do?" And he's like, "Well, why don't you come out to Bahrain with me?" He's like, "I'm already over here. It's a 1 star level command. It gets you out of the infantry battalion, lets you see a different aspect of the Marine Corps, and gets you out of your comfort zone." I was just like, let me think about it. Let me talk to my wife. And he did say it's an unaccompanied tour for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, all right, I just got done doing two deployments. My daughter's not even 3 yet. Um,
It's tough.
well, let me talk to the wife. And so my wife and we made out a pros and cons list of, you know, what is this going to entail? And the only con on that list was I'm going to be gone for 12 months. And, I called Chris back about a week, 2 weeks later. I was like, I'm down. Let's do this. He's like, are you serious? I didn't think he'd say yes. I was like, my wife and I have been talking about this for the past 2 weeks. There's no cons in it, let's do it. And so I called the monitor. The monitor was even like, dude, what the fuck? Like, are you serious? I was like, yeah. He's like, why are you doing this? It's like, I want to see a different part of the Marine Corps. I've done the battalion thing my entire life. I want to see what a staff command is. I have different aspirations, different dreams, things I want to do. And he's like, okay. So 5 months after I got back from the B-Surf deployment, I was on a flight over to Bahrain, and it was a good time. I was in Bahrain for about 8 months as a training chief, and, I met, think of a top-heavy command where there's nothing but Marine officers.
Mm-hmm.
A staff sergeant is essentially like a sergeant. A sergeant is essentially like a PFC or lance corporal. It's a top-heavy command, but you learn so much from the operational and strategic side of the house that it's invaluable information. And then come August, I had some random major came in. He's like, hey dude, do you do height and weights? I was like, yeah. Who you with? He's like, oh, I'm the special forces liaison over here. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do it. And he's like, what do you do? I was like, I'm an 0369. I'm a JFO. He's like, really? He's like, give me your contact information. Couple weeks later, me, John, and Chappie, we were on a flight over to some other location supporting 19th Group. And for 2 months, we were using Scan Eagle and coordinating with our coalition force counterparts, and we were just dropping bombs for 2 months.
Nice. So they brought you in specifically because you were a JFO?
For that mission, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I had never had the opportunity to use those skill sets because I think I was like the second class to go through the JFO school back in 2009.
Okay.
And so then from there, we went on the MEU deployment, didn't use those skills. Nothing was going on the MEU. The only thing that happened was at the beginning of the deployment, literally the very beginning, we had to go respond to Operation Unified Response down in Haiti, the earthquake that went that destroyed everything.
Yeah.
And that was literally the only type of operational thing we did during that deployment. So we were sitting on a boat the whole time. So here we go, 2009. I get certified and qualified as a JFO, and then 2017, I'm using these skills, and so John and Chappie were invaluable in giving me refreshing me on the information that I hadn't really studied up on, and we were successful.
Yeah, it's so for those that don't know what we're talking about, the JFO program is the Joint Fires Observer program. And the way it's supposed to work is the JFOs augment the JTACs. So it's easier in Afghanistan. The way operations would go, it didn't really make a lot of sense to send JTACs out on individual patrols because then they're only aware of what's going on around them and maybe some, radio traffic they're keeping up with on their map and stuff like that. But if you're back in the command center with all the maps and all the, the UAV feeds and everything else, you can control the aircraft and for the entire battle space. And then instead of you being out on patrol, they send out the Joint Fires Observer. And what his role is to get targeting data and to talk to the aircraft to get the aircraft, on the correct target and stuff like that. He basically does almost all the stuff that a JTAC does, except he can't give final clearance or anything like that. It has to get sent back to the JTAC for him to look over all the data and make sure it looks good before it's approved. Prior to the JFO program, it was just 0861s, forward observers just doing this. This was just their job. That's just the job. If I go pull my old, was it 3TAC 16.6, I believe, is the manual off the shelf, it'll talk in there on how to control air, how to talk to aircraft, and how to do different things with them. But that's for a basic Marine. And I think the Marine Corps kind of realized, that's probably not the best. We can do better. The Marine Corps and the Army were like, we don't have enough JTACs. We have to supplement this somehow. We can do better. So they've started training more. They started with observers, but then they bring in infantry guys and stuff like that. I actually taught the JFO primer course at Camp Lejeune for a while before guys would go up to the formal school in EWTG Lant. And we would get everybody. all kinds of engineers or freaking infantry or 0861, the artillery guys. But yeah, so that's what the JFO program is. Not you weren't necessarily doing it the right way, I guess. If you went to school in 2009 and then actually used it in 2015, there was probably now it got more formalized before I got out, but now the JFOs have to maintain their own record jacket and maintain currency and all this stuff, or they'll lose their certification. So yeah, but it was a different time then. I got sent to Afghanistan as a JTAC without going through a full certification phase or designation phase. So
and I kind of look at things. We all know how the Marine Corps operates, but I also look at it in a sense like, I grew up in the Marine Corps as a rifleman, team leader, squad leader, stuff like that, and in your job, some of the TNR tasks in the manual are, must be able to call for fire, must be able to, do a CAS-9 line, close air support, stuff like that. And you look at these tasks, and there's so many TNR tasks that's required of one person. It's like, how is somebody to really be an expert at all this stuff unless you are in a book all the time? And so you really get to see a peek behind the curtain of what it is to really be a professional, and also see what other individual skill sets are and kind of blend them into your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you're talking about with the TNR, which is Training and Readiness Manual, with that, and it, again, for those that don't know, what that does is outlines all the tasks that are required by every individual, every component within a unit, either the individual, the squad, the platoon. They all have these different tasks that they're expected to be able to achieve. What's crazy is on the ground side, we put so many tasks on our individual people. We all know that there's no way Johnny's going to do these different tasks every 3 months to maintain currency or whatever. The Air Wing is the only side of the military that really makes sure that their TNR manuals followed very strictly. It's all logged. There's no pencil whipping it and stuff like that. Like if one of my guys hasn't done a shift from known point call for fire in a year, I know he's not going to use it. I know he can do it. And there was no requirement to keep track of it like there is with the Air Wing. If in the Air Wing, if you don't keep track of it, you're not flying. On the ground side, it's like, it's a nice to have to be able to brief the commander to be like, hey, here's where we are on TNR task complete. But there's so many tasks. It's just crazy that for any one person to do it. And I like what you said about how you guys learn how to do call for fire. And this is the same way with like second lieutenants that are going through TBS. They learn call for fire. They see close air support. They get an opportunity to like practice it a couple times. And it's funny, you get these people that come out to the fleet and they're like, I could do call for fire. I can do this. I can do that. And it's like, okay,
no,
man,
you can't.
Let's see it.
Okay, here's the mic. Let's see if you can do this.
And it's funny because, and the way I explain it to guys like you, like an infantry guy, it's like, that's like me saying every Marine's a rifleman. Yeah, yep. I can go into a house and I can pull the trigger and do some stuff and maybe be kind of effective. But the way you're 1,000
and 2,000 level task, the individual skill sets to stay survivable, but you don't have the ability, you don't have the knowledge to really go through and do everything that's required.
Yeah, it's just a different level, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no reason why your basic, Lance Corporal 0311 should be able to control 2 sections of aircraft. It's just not, that's just not in his wheelhouse. Feasible. Yeah, it's just not in his wheelhouse. So yeah, it's a good time, man. And I always encourage people to get certifications like that. It may seem stupid and maybe something like like you took the course and you don't get to use it for a long time, but it's such an invaluable skill that can literally save lives in combat if you take it seriously and you kind of understand it,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Let's roll back a little bit. We kind of jumped around here at the beginning. So you were an infantryman in the Marine Corps, and then, you've done multiple deployments. You're on the Marine Corps rifle team, which is pretty awesome. And that's really something I want to talk about too, is the rifle team.
So Marine Corps shooting team. So
shooting team, my bad.
Yeah. So we have a rifle team, a pistol team, and the action shooting team.
Okay.
And we'll go into that more.
Well, let's just go ahead and talk about that up front, and then we can talk a little bit about your career, because I think that's an interesting aspect of the military that a lot of people don't either realize we have, or they don't understand how they can get involved in it. And it's something I always found fascinating, and I've talked about this probably in the last few podcasts, that before I joined, I read Marine Sniper, Carlos Hathcock's book, and he talks about being on the shooting team, and that's the first time that I had realized that was like a thing. So can you kind of explain what it is, what the teams are, and how guys can work their way into that?
Okay, so you have three teams. You have the Marine Corps Rifle Team, and they're still doing a lot of the traditional high power type shooting. And so what I mean by high power is, think old qualification where you're at the 2, 3, and 500-yard line. You're getting in a loop sling. You're trying to get as much bone support as you possibly can and get the most perfect position. And I guess the best way to describe it is, the extreme fundamentals of marksmanship. Every little movement will make a difference on your shot placement. So you have to be extremely disciplined with how you practice. I was listening to your podcast the other day about how Carlos Hathcock would just practice sitting in front of his TV in the kneeling position. And legitimately, like, that's one form of practice. Like, you have dry fire practice, and that is their form of dry fire practice. Granted, they have the range every day that they can possibly get it, and they're practicing at the 2, 3, 600, and then they'll go out to the 1,000-yard line, and they'll still be shooting a national match rifle instead of shooting, standard, green tip ammo. They're shooting 80 grain ammo that's been custom loaded for us. So that's the aspect of the rifle team. And when they go up to Camp Perry, Ohio for nationals, they'll shoot the antique guns, the M1 Garands, they'll shoot the 1903 Springfields, and those different variants. And they're competing against thousands of people. They're competing against the Army Marksmanship unit. There's a lot of deep tradition on the Marine Corps shooting team since their inception in 1901. I have these 2 red books behind me, and they are called the Red Books, and it outlines every distinguished shooter who has ever gone distinguished in the entire Marine Corps, wow, whether it was with pistol or rifle. And it outlines the history and the purpose of the Marine Corps shooting team. And I'll be the first one to say it, in the book itself, it states that one aspect of the shooting team is to go out and compete, and to take those lessons that you learn from competition and give it back to the rest of the Fleet Marine Force. I think at times the team has lost its way. I'll be the first one to say that, and they focus more on the tradition and the competition side of the house rather than the give back side of the house. But I can honestly say now, with the way this ship has been steered, they are focusing wholeheartedly more on, let's take what we learned from competition and give it back to the rest of the Marine Corps.
Are you saying that they're before they were competing and they were doing good things, but the information that they're learning just wasn't getting disseminated down?
Correctly.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And there's been a shift. And I would say there was more focus on just the traditional shooting sports. Like, I think there always needs to be an evolution in what you're doing. Why are we still shooting disciplines from the early 1900s? Why haven't we evolved into shooting in competitions that are more in line with what we see in combat? And that's where you have the action shooting team. Previously, the pistol team, they shot at 50 yards and 25 yards one-handed, and they were aiming at it like a 3-inch circle. And, that was their 10-ring and X-ring. The X-ring, I want to say, was like 1.5 inches that you had to hit. But what purpose does that serve in combat? That you can shoot a pistol one-handed? Okay, cool. Like, I'm not going into a building and shooting one-handed. I'm going in shooting two-handed. So one of the biggest things I tried doing on the team, and I accomplished it, was getting rid of the bullseye pistol discipline and bringing in action pistol, shooting USPSA and those types of those sports.
Are you now, when you say action pistol, you're talking about something similar to like 3-gun, where you're moving around the range?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's where the action shooting team comes into play, the 3-gun team. You know, being able to look at a course of fire, that somebody came up with, and then what is the fastest way I can shoot this with the accuracy I need and the time that's been prescribed. And the time is, how fast can I shoot it? How accurate can I shoot it?
Mm-hmm.
How many points can I accumulate, and what can I do to win?
Have now the shooting that you guys are doing, who creates like the programs? Because like say you said you went in and you're like, hey, we don't, the bullseye pistol is no good, let's get rid of that and let's focus on this over here. How does that, how can you go about that? Because I feel like usually for most people know, most sports have a governing body, and they're like, hey,
Right.
here's the things you are going to do, here's the things you're going to participate in. Did you have to get that added to a governing body, or did you guys just kind of shift to where you're going for competitions?
So we just kind of shifted. So like there was already a governing body for the action pistol side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a organization called USPSA, United States Practical Shooting Association. It's been around since like the 1970s. Colonel Jeff Cooper, I want to say, is the one who started it. And we just go out and compete at those. We didn't have to add any. We didn't have to. Like we have to sign up for a membership to be part of the USPSA to compete in the higher level matches, but it's not like we had to add that to our Marine Corps order or anything like that. It's like, hey, this is the focus that we need to shift to, and this is the direction that we're going to go. And I kind of created a 2-year plan between the budget, the ammo. I set up a bailment contract with CZ USA. They sent us 8 guns for free, or 10 guns for free, and just for us to do some testing evaluation on. And within the year, we purchased those guns. So there was a lot of work that really went into getting them equipped with what they needed. But a lot of us already had the knowledge and understanding by already having the action shooting team, the 3-gun team, in place. So there really wasn't much of a shift, and it was more just, hey, we're dropping this discipline and we're picking this discipline up. And it saved us money, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because we were going out for weekends rather than 3 weeks at a time. Stuff like that.
That's kind of a bummer, right? Shorten your TAD trips a little bit.
But we go on more trips and compete more.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So you're talking about, the whole point of this is to acquire knowledge and bring that back to the fleet and kind of disseminate it down to people. But are you guys shooting service weapons? The pistols you shoot aren't the M9s or whatever they're transferring to now, right?
No, in order to stay competitive within the disciplines that we are shooting highly customized weapons. Like I shoot an STI 2011, and most people aren't going to know what that is, but it's like a double stack 1911. It holds 23 rounds in the magazine. It's a metal gun. I'm shooting a 16-inch rifle with a mid-length gas system, and everything has been tuned on that gun to where there is zero recoil whatsoever. And I'm shooting a semi-automatic shotgun that holds 13 rounds in the tube. Like, I am shooting competition guns, but all the principles stay the same. Whenever we go out to the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, which I'll get into that more, we are shooting duty guns. We're shooting the M17s. We're shooting the Berettas. We're shooting an M16 or an M4 with the RCO or the new Squad Common Optic. We are demonstrating with those guns, and I guess this is a good time to go into the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions. That is our opportunity that is one of the opportunities that we have to go out and teach the rest of the Marine Corps how to get better at marksmanship. And we're just kind of scratching the surface whenever we're going out and teaching them, but we're teaching them, we're teaching them how to apply the fundamentals in a realistic scenario rather than, hey, loop sling or get in this position, this is a standing, kneeling, and prone position. No, we're putting them in different positions, a reverse kneeling position, or, hey, you have to get down and rest your rifle on this. Oh, and by the way, you don't have a free floated barrel, so the strike of your round is going to go throw the round. The because of barrel harmonics and all that, the strike of your round isn't going to be where you're aiming at, so you need to offset down a bit based on how much pressure you have on the gun, and we're teaching them these skills. And we go out we're starting it up in a week or so, or the team is starting it up. I'm not on the team anymore, but they're going to start teaching Marines from the National Capital Region. After that, they're going to Okinawa. Then they'll do Camp Pendleton, Hawaii, and Camp Lejeune. And then we take the top 10% from each of those locations and then bring them back out to Quantico, and they're competing in Marine Corps championships. So these competitions aren't just an opportunity for us to teach, but it's an opportunity for us to recruit. And so we'll choose people at Marine Corps championships on who wants to come to the team for the summer, and then based on their performance and how they act and their character over the summer, then we'll bring them out to the team permanently.
That's awesome. I'll be honest, man. When I was I was surprised by how little I heard about the shooting team.
Dude, I'll be the first one to tell you, I didn't even know that there was a shooting team until 2016. Well, it was 2014. I saw James Gill on the Outdoor Channel competing in Three Gun Nation. He has one leg, one eye. He's an active duty Marine, or he was an active duty Marine, and he was coming in top 10 in the nation. And wow. He was on our Marine Corps shooting team. And then I met the team whenever I was competing up in West Virginia back in 2016. They asked me, but then, hey, do you want to come out to the team? No, I'm going on another deployment, man.
Mm-hmm. That was part of it.
Yeah.
That was part of why a lot of people hadn't heard about anything like that, is because of deployments and stuff. There was no real need to focus on a shooting team to get better, because you could send guys overseas for the real one, but I can see why the shooting team would be a huge asset during times like now, when we're shifting more to a garrison kind of style Marine Corps. There's less deployments and stuff like that. There's no combat. We're not fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq. So what are we going to do to maintain our skills? I would, I was just a lowly enlisted man, but if I was a battalion commander, regimental commander, or higher or something, I'd be like, why do we have an intramural football team but not an intramural shooting team in our units?
And so that's one of the things we have started doing more. One of the guys, it was a group of us. It was, Staff Sergeant Rader kind of took the helm at it, and then Chris Scott, who was one of the OICs on the team, and then I was the staff NCOIC of the team. And Rader, he was like, we need to do mobile training teams. And so we started going out to PMOs, and we started teaching the pistol skills that we would use. And then one of the first trips I did out on a mobile training team is we went down to 2nd Recon, and we went out there, and, we kind of blew their mind with the way we train. We gave them the same training principles and the same processes that we use, and we use something called discovery learning. Hey, I'm going to show you exactly how I do this. I'm going to give you a time standard, and then I'm going to let you work on your own without any supervision whatsoever. I'm going to be walking around, and if you need my help, I'll help you. If I see something that needs to corrected, I'll correct you. And we keep it the most relaxed environment you could possibly think of. And, hey, I want you to draw and hit that target in 1.5 seconds. From draw to first shot, 1.5 seconds, I want you to hit in this target area. And they were hitting those standards. We would show them the standard first, just to show them we weren't bullshitting them. Mm-hmm. And then we let them do that. And we did that for every type of drill we were performing. And then we introduced them to the competition side of the house, gave them a timer. Hey, I'm going to shoot this and this time. And then we allowed them to get comfortable in a competition setting, going up against the guys in their own platoon. And, there were a lot of laughs, jokes, making fun of each other, the things we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
But then they saw how having a timer and having some type of standard was benefiting them. And they've, the guys just got back from another trip from Second Recon, and it always helps to have people that are advocating for the team to come down and train. But like, we're kind of in the early phases of it where we're getting that messaging out, and more and more people are hearing about it.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's awesome, man. And really, if you're going to work with anybody, recon, any of the recon units shoot so much. They're already so familiar. It's not like you'd be going to like second maintenance battalion and almost having to teach people how to shoot from the beginning again. Recon guys are shooting all the time anyway, so it just adds to the discipline that they have. I guess one thing I thought of when you were talking about, hey, we add the timer, kind of adds that stress or whatever to the situation. Couldn't having the timer sometimes be a bad thing for guys that are military guys that are training, because then it almost gets you in the habit of rushing to get something done rather than maybe doing it the safest way. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Like, if we're going to enter a house, I don't want to just rush in as soon as I get to the house. I want to maybe think about it. Okay, which way we're going to go? We're going to go, make a little plan. But when you add that timer, that artificial like stressor, I don't know. I mean, you see what I'm saying though?
So I do see what you're saying. The way I kind of look at it is like, so I'll kind of break down how I do competition. I go up to a stage and think of a stage like I'm going up to a house, but at that stage, I get to look at every angle of the stage without messing with any of the props, and I get to formulate a plan, kind of like doing a map reconnaissance or something, but I'm actually on the objective. And nothing starts until that timer goes off. So first contact doesn't start until somebody actually goes into that house or into that building. So I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think the timer is just, it adds that stress, like you said. It gives you something to really just track what your performance is.
Yeah.
Time equals stress. Timers equal stress. You can't recreate being in a battle without bullets, and we're not going to shoot at people while we're in a competition.
Yeah.
The only artificial means you have is adding that time requirement or that stress.
What would be awesome is if it went beyond the mobile training team. And like I was saying, it went down to maybe just a regimental level. Maybe each regiment has an intramural shooting team, and they all compete with each other. Is that a thing?
So it is not a thing. Like, I know they're trying. There's been talks of doing intramural teams and stuff like that, but my friend and my co-host for my own podcast, Frank, whenever he was down at 2nd Intel Battalion, he created a shooting team within his own unit, and he outlined a clear path of what it would take for individual commands to start their shooting team. So whenever it comes to the Marine Corps marksmanship competition season, like, those guys already know how to shoot. They know how to shoot together, and they know how to train together. So he already outlined all that stuff, and whether or not it gets disseminated to the rest of the Marine Corps or to the rest of the 2nd Marine Division, that's on them. But, people are starting to take it more seriously. Another aspect that the team has contributed to is at the Marksmanship Program Management section, they started the Advanced Marksmanship Training Package, and they took, I want to say, 75% of the guys that are there at the AMTP from the Marine Corps shooting team, and those guys developed standards and periods of instruction, and they went and taught those skills to SOI East and SOI West. So now that is part of the Advanced Infantryman's course or the Infantryman school, like whatever it's called now. So guys from the shooting team are now teaching those skills at the SOI level. That way, guys going to the fleet are at a much higher level, and they're doing really well. The program's a success already.
I mean, that's so much better than you've experienced it. When I was in, It didn't matter how long you'd been in the Marine Corps. Every time you go to the rifle range, you got to sit down and listen to the same classes, fight or flight, side alignment, side picture, which is great for, your E4 and below maybe, or something like that. But I think after a while, it's like, let's trust these guys to learn something a little different. Let's do something a little new. And it's like, we're already at the range. Let's use this opportunity to like learn something rather than, I don't know. I like what you're doing. I think it's great.
I used to hate going to the range. Anything that involved the Marine Corps and marksmanship always was miserable. Like, oh, you have to show up here at 4:00 in the morning to grab your weapon from the armory. Like, oh, I have this block or this coach or whoever, that's going to yell at me because I didn't freaking clear the weapon or I didn't raise my hand. Like, one thing I hate about the rifle range is, oh, I had a stoppage. I need an alibi. Let me raise my hand here and have this person come over and help me. No, that's not how it's going to be in combat. No, you clear the weapon yourself. You figure out what the problem is, and then you re-engage. Like, you don't get makeups in combat. You don't get makeups, in competition. Figure it the fuck out and shoot.
Yeah, I never thought the rifle range was a very good representation of like combat shooting, but I always did enjoy going to the rifle range because I was like, man, look at all this free ammo. You're talking from like 2000. I was in from 2006 to 2018. Ammo is expensive, and we're shooting hundreds of rounds for free. And I'm like, anytime someone wants to give me free ammo and let me go shoot, I'm down. I'll shoot all day. I don't even care. So when did you retire?
September 1st was my retirement date.
Oh,
I started terminal leave September 10th.
Man, so you freshly retired.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to the other side.
I appreciate it.
That's awesome, man. It's well, I want to talk about that then too, the transition and stuff, but so when I was in, and a lot of my listeners, the rifle range was like what you talked about before, 200, 300, and 500 yards. The 200, you're doing, what is it, sitting and kneeling. 300, you're doing sitting, kneeling, and prone for the rapid fire?
So 200 is sitting, kneeling, standing, 15 rounds.
That's right.
And then you're doing the rapid fire in the kneeling, I believe.
Yep.
Then the 300 is kneeling and sitting, and then you're doing the prone for the rapid fire. And then the 500 is the prone.
How has the rifle range qualifications changed now for, you want to update the listeners?
So they are now, they start at the 500 yard line now, and then they move down to the 100, and they have barricades that they're capable of using. They can use their pack as an artificial source of stability. And at the 500, I want to say they have to get up and down a series of times. I'm not too familiar with the way the qualification system works now, but it's going from standing to prone, utilizing artificial support, and hitting within the target designated area on like a human scale target. So they're getting rid of. They're no longer shooting at circles or in tombstones. They're shooting at man-sized targets.
Okay. What was the 500 yard line target, like the Bravo target or something like that? That was basically a human silhouette, wasn't it? So they all look like that now?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. And you're moving all the way down to the 100 yard line, and then after that, I want to say you go to the 25 yard line and do something that's similar to like table 2 and table 3. But your standards are a lot more strict. Like if you drop a point at or 2 points at a certain area, you're going to go from expert to sharpshooter. Surprisingly enough, there hasn't been the amount of unks that everybody anticipated there being, which is a good thing, because at first everybody thought there was going to be a 50% unqualified rate.
Jeez.
Yeah, but the way I look at it is, well, that just shows that we have a deficiency in the Marine Corps, so now we need to step it up and build our standard. I kind of go back to the tune of, we can do all the sexy tactics and we can do everything that's right, but if we can't hit the target, then we're not going to be able to take the objective.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember the when you go into the rifle range at Camp Lejeune, they have those signs. I don't know if they still do, but they used to have those signs on the right hand side. They would have like little sayings on your way in, and one of them was like, "If you can't hit them, you can't kill them," and it was like chesty puller. I remember all that. So you think the new course of fire is better than the old course of fire?
Absolutely. It's a step in the right direction. Now, they are still doing the old course of fire at like the boot camps. And that is specifically to teach the fundamentals. Like the old course of fire, that's great to start out with.
Yeah.
And it's great to build those fundamentals. And then, okay, there needs to be a building, a stepping stone or a systems approach of training, building block approach to teach people more advanced skill sets. Let's build upon what they've already learned and expound upon that.
Have you ever shot at Miramar where they have the digital targets?
No, I honestly spent like 13 years at Lejeune.
Really?
Yeah.
You just went from there to deployments to coming back, huh?
Yeah, I pretty much just jumped unit to unit. And I did get out for about 6 months, and then I came back in. We went from 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines, got out for 6 months, then went to 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. After that, the second deployment at 1-9, I went to SOI East, and then I called the monitor up. Was like, "Hey, send me to the next deploying unit." He's like, "All right, well, you're going to 2-9." I was like, "Okay, I'm staying here on the East Coast." And then after 2-9 disbanded, I went to 1-8, and then that's whenever I was like, "Send me to Bahrain."
That's kind of wild, man. That's something that people may not know, but they like kind of frown upon that. That's the homesteading that they bitched about for like many years. And the thought process was, if you stay in one area, you're more likely to get into trouble. You're more likely to like start doing stuff maybe the way you want to do it rather than the way it should be done, because you know how it works because you've been there for so long, and you're not getting like the experience of different units in the fleet. Now, from what I understand, because of like budgetary concerns and shit like that, they're trying to get more people to kind of homestead and keep people at some bases for a little longer before PCSing, sending them off to another station. Is that kind of the way it was when you were getting out?
Not really sure. I'd venture to say yes. I mean, come up from whenever I finished here at Quantico, so I spent 4.5 years at Quantico on the team. And the only reason why I got to do that is because I told the monitor I'm retiring. And he's like, "All right, I'll keep you in place." I was like, "Cool, appreciate it."
That's cool.
And, it gave the team more longevity too. Whenever I got to the team, I'd say my whole time on the team, I went through 3 or 4 OICs on the team just because one got promoted to lieutenant colonel. Then they put a captain in place for 6 months. And then, they finally got a major in there. Well, he did 1.5 years in that as the OIC. Well, then he had to move up to the OPSO, so then they put somebody else in place. So there was no continuity on the team. And on a team where all you're trying to do is grow, if you don't have that continuity, the new person's going to come in and they're going to be like, "Well, I want to do it like this." "Well, sir, we've been headed toward this trajectory for a while now, so why don't we continue that path and this trajectory rather than changing the way things are?"
Yeah, that's the problem when you get new officers every 2 years, is they want to come in and they have good intentions, right? They just want to make things better, and they see like, oh, maybe if we do it this way. And it's like the guys that have been sitting there and have seen someone try it to do it that way are like, "Come on, man, don't come in here and start changing stuff." Yeah. So with that, are there officers on the actual shooting team, or are they just in leadership positions?
There are. So they have the officer in charge, and the OICs. It's a major that's filling that position. They can or cannot have. They may or may not have experience in the shooting sports. The last OIC did have experience within the traditional shooting sports. Prior to that, Mark O'Driscoll, he didn't have a traditional experience in the shooting sports. whether it was high power or action, but he did experience Marine Corps marksmanship competition. I'd say he was probably the best OIC that been on the team in quite a while. And then on the individual teams, the rifle team, pistol team, or action team, typically there's two captains that are filling like the pistol team / action shooting team billet, and then another captain filling the rifle team. Now it's kind of gone to, well, you're getting one captain and he's going to be like the team XO. Chris Scott was one of the OICs that was on the team for the most of my career there. And I mean, he was a shooter. He came in 2016. He augmented to the team for summer, shot with the team for that summer, went back to his MOS over in Camp Pendleton. He was a MP officer, and then he got orders to the team. And tell you what, he was probably one of the best members of the team as an officer and as a shooter. You know, he helped build and grow the team to what they are today. But then he also proved it to everybody with his abilities on the range. You know, I want to say he came in like 11th place in USPSA Nationals. You know, you're beating out, you know, hundreds of people within your division. You know, he consistently would come first, second, or third place at any major 3-gun match, which is extremely hard to do. You know, and he proved to people, hey, I don't shoot every day. I'm in the office every day, but I have the discipline to focus on what's important when I have the time available to do that.
Yeah, which is crazy because a lot of these pro shooters are shooting every day. That's their lifestyle. That's they got sponsors and everything else, you know. So they have to stay up there. It's always crazy when you hear like Marines or military members in general excelling in different things like sports and while also maintaining their day job. You know, it's like, man, you have this crazy schedule to maintain the level that you have to be competitive, like in the shooting team. But on the other side, you also have to do all the monthly counselings. You need to make sure training's set up. You got to make sure, you know, like all the ridiculous stuff. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Is there a pathway from the shooting team to maybe like competing in the Olympics? Is that like something that is a open opportunity for you guys, or do you shoot in the same disciplines at all that any of the Olympic sports shoot?
We don't. The closest thing to the Olympics would have been like a service rifle or service pistol. Except in the Olympics, you're shooting like a 22. Like there's 25-yard rapid fire, and you're aiming at like a nickel or dime size target at 25 yards. And I mean, those guys are good. But the Marine Corps got rid of the international shooting team back in the 90s. There was a lot of angst about that, but you know, I'll tell you right now, to get onto Team USA, you have to dedicate a lot of time. The Marine Corps, you know, I would venture to say probably doesn't have the budget because you have to spend, you know, 6 months over at the Olympic training facility over in Colorado. And it's not until you make it to Team USA that Team USA is going to foot the bill for all your TAD costs and everything else that's required. So the Marine Corps, you know, I would venture to say back in the 90s when they still had that, they were probably bleeding a lot of money. You know, one of my friends, Keith Sanderson, he's a 3-time Olympian. He started out on the Marine Corps shooting team, you know, back in the late 90s. Then he went to the Army Marksmanship unit. And then because, well, he had that Marine attitude and he couldn't keep his mouth shut at times, he got kicked off the Army Marksmanship unit. And his first time was like, well, I know you want to go over to Iraq, so I'm going to send you over to Korea instead. And then he went to Korea and he qualified for the Olympics.
That's awesome.
And then after that, he joined the WCAP program that the Army National Guard has, and it's the World Class Athlete program.
Yep.
And then he retired from there a few years back, and he's been, you know, he's won gold medal, I believe, at the Pan American Games. He's qualified for the Olympics, went to the Olympics. You know, he's an amazing shooter with those disciplines.
Yeah, it's tough for something to sell something like that to people that just don't care or unaware or anything. if you go to someone and be like, hey, I got this shooting competition in 2 months, it'd be great, we should get to it. Who cares? That's not, if it's not important to them, it's going to be hard to convince them. That's the tough side of the bureaucracy, right?
I will say, one of the things that the team could have done, and I was trying to steer the ship in that direction, is there's a thing called the International Pistol Shooting, or International Practical Shooting Confederation. Think of the Olympics, but the action shooting side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the OICs was like, oh yeah, I want to try and bring the international shooting team back and this and that. I was like, well, are you going to do the Olympic sports? He's like, well, yeah. I was like, well, why don't you just? We already have the people who have the talent, who have the equipment, and we have the range time. We can shoot internationally then, and we can make some big gains and get more funding that way. I was like, why don't we do that? And so we'll see if they actually do it. Whether they do it or not, we'll see.
It's tough, man. It's tough for guys and people that are trying to do something outside of the norm within the military, because the military is created, it's a bureaucracy, so it's like shaped for you to go down this certain path or whatever, depending on your job or whatever. And then if you try to go off from that, it's like, whoa, what are you trying to do? No one's done that before. So it's like, okay, but does that mean we can't do it? I had Riley Compton come on. She is a Marine lieutenant, but she's also working to try to get on Team USA for the bobsledding team, for the women's bobsledding team. And she has some of the same kind of issues where I guess her command is pretty open to letting her compete as long as, she's taking care of the stuff she's got to take care of. So they will let her go TAD to go to like different training events in Colorado, or go over to Europe to compete in the international games and stuff like that. But like for you guys, she's kind of charting this unknown waters, because she's
on her own. She is all on her own.
Yeah, especially being a bobsledder, right? Who are you gonna talk to about being a bobsledder?
It's funny. I have a friend. He was on the shooting team. He got out, and then next thing you know, he's over at the Olympic training facility. What is it? In Utah, like where they do the luge, the bobsled, and all that stuff. And he was trying out for Team USA, and he's still living out there, and he's still like training semi-regularly with them. But yeah, he was trying to do the same thing. He went over to Germany, I believe, and picked up a $7,000 sled.
That's crazy.
He's out now, and you have to chart your own path. Like when it comes to a lot of that stuff, it's charting your own path and footing your own bill.
Well, I think something also that a lot of people realize when they start charting their own path is it's not as hard to get some stuff done as you think. Mm-hmm. I had I don't know, remember who said it to me. Somebody in the military, probably some first sergeant or something, at one point was like, a closed mouth never gets fed. Like if you don't ever ask to go do something, you're never going to get told yes. You know what I'm saying? And you got to be smart about it. You got to like not just come in and ask for something, but come in with the pros and cons. Here's why it's a good idea. Here's why it's good for the military. Here's why it's good for the Marine Corps. I mean, to me, as someone that grew up in the Midwest, I like to shoot. I'm not like a regular shooter or anything like that, but I'll go out and mess around. Having something like the shooting team, like promoting that within the military and making it like a thing, that's one of those things I would look at and be like, man, this is a great opportunity. Like maybe I will re-enlist, if I can get over there and do that. Like, I think opening people's eyes to some of the different opportunities that there are while you're in the military, because there are so many out there, and the only word that gets passed is through like, what is it, like the commander, like Marine Corps bulletins or whatever, they get posted up on it.
The MAR admins?
Yeah, the MAR admins that no one reads except for like occasional sergeant majors and stuff, and they're not going to let you know about an upcoming shooting competition.
And that's why we have the Marine Corps shooting team Facebook page. That's why we have an Instagram page. That's why, like, when I was on the team, I started the podcast. That way, it's like, hey, I'm the guy giving the official word at that time. I know what's coming up. It's like I'm going to use every source necessary in order to spread the word and be an advocate, not just for the team, but an advocate to try and get people over to shoot these competitions, because I know the benefit that they'll bring. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the route we took, and we've started to get they've started to get a stronger social media presence. Shoot, we recruited people off of Instagram to come to the Marine Corps shooting team. Like,
Awesome.
we saw what they were doing and was like, holy shit, that guy can shoot. All right, let's keep an eye on him. And we kept an eye on one of the guys, Alex Goking, for probably a year or so. And whenever the opportunity presented itself, we brought him to the team. And now he took over my position, being in charge of my last position I held, which was being in charge of the 3-gun team.
That's awesome.
And he's ran with it, and he's taken everything that I've done, and he's made it better.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you can hope for, right? I think the shooting team has done a way better job in the last year or 2 years on putting stuff on social media. And I think the military is starting to come around and be like, hey, like we've really neglected the social media thing. We're not getting, we're not passing word effectively, or people just don't care what we're saying. Like the Lance Corporal so-and-so is not reading the MAR admins and stuff like that.
MAR admins are outdated and they're stupid. It's like, oh, well, that's the official word. Yeah, but it takes, okay, so my MAR admin got pushed out 3 months late because you had a problem with this one word in there, or this was misspelled, or this didn't have the proper grammar.
Yeah.
It's like, come the fuck on, guys. Like,
that's the stuff I hated, man. When you turn something in that's like really important, some paperwork, and get kicked back from the sergeant major, be like, this is font size 11 and it's supposed to be 10. You're like, dude, just fucking sign the paper, man. Yeah. Like, are we serious right now? Is this what we're really worried about? But
it's like, we're a war fighting organization. Let's stick to war fighting. I get to like, we have to be disciplined with certain things, and we need to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. But do you get the point of what the message I'm trying to put across? Let's get the Marines involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're doing a much better job. That's something that General Bellin had brought up during his interview, and he's really trying to make an effort to have a social media presence that allows him to, one, maybe inform the force in a better way, give them some information that they may not have seen, just maybe not like super important stuff, but like, oh, hey, this unit's out on the range and this is what they did today and it was really awesome, stuff like that. But it also gives him an avenue to connect with Marines that he would not have. Imagine a 3-star general. I told him during the interview, it was like the first thing I said, I was like, dude, I don't think I've ever actually talked to a 3-star general before. I was like, this is like the first time. So, and when you are a general, there's no way you can believe when you come down to a unit that everything you see is what it is, because as well as I do, it's a dog and pony show. Like, oh, the general's coming down on Friday, so we're police calling, we're painting the sidewalk lines or the parking lot lines, we're, doing all this stupid shit until they get there. And it's like, so I think it's a great outlet for someone like him in these higher leadership positions to get a pulse of the force. They can do what you did. You said you followed this guy that's a shooter and like, hey, let's keep an eye on him. This might be a benefit. It gives them the ability to do something like that, and also the ability to like disseminate information that they feel is important, and the MAR admin process is outdated, like you were talking about. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's just, I think it's great. And I think the more that people do put on social media, within reason, obviously, we don't want to put anything that's like sensitive information or anything like that. I think it's good because it shows not only people in the military some options they may not have realized that are out there, because every path is different. Everybody's path doesn't matter if you're infantry, you're artillery, you're a communicator. If I join the Marine Corps at the same time as my buddy and we both become radio operators, the odds of us having a similar career aren't that great. Because he could go to a logistics unit, I could go to an infantry unit, he could go to whatever. It's just, there's so many paths that can be taken. And there's so many paths that people don't even realize are there, like the shooting team. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man, I think it's good stuff. What's like the next big goal for the shooting team?
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I kind of separated myself from a lot of the things that they're doing. They're trying to get into precision rifle series. I think they're just trying to break away from the tradition, and they're trying to focus on more the disciplines that are going to give back to the Marine Corps as a whole. Like, we already have the pistol team, which we've been utilizing. We already have the action shooting team, which we've been utilizing. They have, they have already started a precision rifle team, which PRS, that sport there, they're shooting anywhere from 900 yards to, they could be, I know a buddy of mine, he just shot a competition where they shot out to over 1,900 yards away. And
Using
if
what
you
kind of
hit the
rifle?
well, he was using, I want to say he was using a 6 mil, and that was just one of those one-off shots that, like, you're not going to waste all your time trying to hit that target, but if you hit it, you hit it. If you don't, you take the penalty. It is fully possible to hit a target at a mile away with the 308. I've done it, but you're taking so much time to get the data for that. But they're starting to compete more into the PRS style of shooting. It's just getting them equipped to do that with the guns and the ammunition, because these PRS guns, they're not just like the 308s, the Remington 700s, the A5s, and the A6s that the Marine Corps has in the Armory. No, these are fully hand-built, hand-fitted parts on these guns, and they allow them to push the extremes of the sport that they're competing in. So we're trying to outfit the team in such a way to where the rest of the Marine Corps can utilize the team if they ever want to learn anything. I know the new battalion commander is talking about, hey, let's get involved in night matches. Let's host. Let's go to night matches. Like, the Marine Corps is always like, we own the night, but do we really? So
that's a great idea. I think that's awesome.
And so I know down at the Griffin Group down in North Carolina, right next to Fort Bragg, the guy there, John Sherbert, he hosts night matches, once a month, and you're shooting out, I want to say probably out to 100 yards with your rifle, and you can either have white light with no nods, or you can have nods and lasers. So whatever scenario, if you're a cop, use your white light. If you're military and you have the equipment with you, use your nods and use your lasers.
That's cool. I think that's a great idea. I think you're right. Night shooting is something that we don't do enough of. And a lot of the times when you go out to a range and you're trying to do a night shoot, there's so many people there that it just kind of becomes just throw your laser.
Robin.
Yeah, and you're not really. When I walk away from a night shoot, do I always feel like the zero on my laser is perfect? No. It's like, I don't know. That's how it was for me, at least, when we were shooting. We didn't do enough night shooting, so I think that would be pretty good. Do you guys have your own armors? Are there armors assigned to the team, or do you guys use armors from a different unit?
We have our own gunsmiths assigned to the team.
Okay.
So they don't fall under the team's actual numbers, but they're attached to us. So at Quantico, they have a section called the Precision Weaponsmith section, where they actually teach them how to build guns and how to modify guns. Traditionally, they always worked on the sniper rifles, the 1911s, and the national match M16s. They're still working on the national match M16s. They're still staying familiar with the 1911s, because those guys can build a 1911 from the ground up, no problem, and they're beautifully shooting guns. They're not messing really with the sniper rifles anymore, but they're still, with everything that we're trying to do, is they're learning how to work on multiple different guns in order to get them running at the best capabilities of those weapon systems.
So you're saying these guys are gunsmiths, not your traditional Marine Corps armorer? Nope. Is that
they were armors that got selected to the gunsmith program, and then they go through a 6-month school on Quantico learning how to be a gunsmith.
Wow, that'd be an awesome opportunity. Something like that. So they don't work on the sniper rifles anymore, because that was, like you said, that was like their traditional kind of job, is building the sniper rifles for.
Not anymore. Teams. Whenever when the Marine Corps put it out for contract for a new sniper rifle, much like the Army did, they went commercial, and a lot of it comes back to is when the war started. This isn't official in any way, but when the war started, the Marine Corps was developing a lot of this stuff and maintaining a lot of this stuff, but war creates industry and creates advancement in technology. And a lot of these commercial vendors, especially with the uptick of competition shooting that's out in the rest of the United States, the rest of the industry took it as a sign of, hey, let's develop the best guns we can, put it in competition, see what they're capable of. And then it kind of came down to is the industry was working faster than what the military was. And so now you have better weapons that are being produced by the industry than what in our own armories.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. That'd be, I don't know, the precision that you have to have for to when working on guns like that, because these aren't your, your regular service rifle that's getting thrown in the armory and then you're taking out and going to the range. You're talking precision. Like everything on it is calibrated down to like just minute details.
Yep.
It's just
I have a pistol in my safe. Every piece on that pistol was hand fitted. And it's a $6,000 gun. That pistol is capable of shooting a half-inch group at 50 yards.
Damn. That's pretty
And
wild.
that's the level of detail these guys go into. Like they fit every single piece in there, and they're truly good at what they do.
What's your favorite thing to shoot?
I'd say pistol.
Yeah.
It's a mix between pistol and rifle. I love whenever I'm shooting a pistol heavy stage and everything is just connecting the way it needs to, I can make up a lot of time on the pistol. But whenever I'm shooting another stage, where I might have to shoot offhand and there's targets that are 100 yards away and I don't have anything to brace off of, my scope's at 1 power. It's like, all right, let's see if I can knock this out of the park and win this thing. And like when everything just kind of connects the way you want to, it's just fun. It's like a work of art. Like, and people can see it. Like people stop. Like most of the time, you're back there just kind of like bullshitting with other people. But when somebody's connecting and like they're doing really well, everybody just kind of stops, watches, and they're just kind of blown away by the performance.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's such a shooting's so fun. You know what I'm saying? And like what you're saying, when you're doing well, if you're in the rhythm and you're just like hitting the target, you're just like, dude, what is going on today? Like I'm really on it for some reason. Like it's got to be a different level for you guys though. When
It's a level of focus. A lot of it comes down to mental focus. The guys like the daily routine of guys on the shooting team is they're going out, they're drawing weapons at 7:30, they're going out to the range at 8, and they may be getting done by 1600. And they have detailed plans of what they plan on working, what skills they're working on that day. And they're one of the things that we try and do is let's focus on skills that we're going to see in competition, but let's make the targets a lot harder. That way, when we get to competition, it's not like we're even trying. Mm-hmm. Like we can just go out there and perform. And you can't replicate competition through training. You can to an extent, but not every stage is the same. Like I'm not going to go to a stage in one state and then go to a competition in another state, and that it's not going to have the same stage. Everything is different every single time in the action shooting sports.
That's good. I mean, that's what you really want though. Keep it fresh, keep it different. It's going to sharpen your skills even more so. So is there any rifle shooting done with iron sights? You mentioned earlier that they use RCOs and they use the, what is it? SCO, the squad common optic?
Yep. In the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, those are the two optics that you're going to be using. And what we do, we have different divisions we can compete in, and they have we've kind of progressed past using iron sights. I keep a set of 45-degree offset iron sights on my rifle just in case, like, I want to transition over real fast without having to change the power on my scope. Mm-hmm. It just makes it flow a lot easier if I have to shoot from far targets to close targets. But other than that, like, there's really no more iron sight shooting. They have a division called heavy metals, which is like a 308 rifle and above, with a 1911 shotgun or a 45 caliber round and a pump action shotgun. But nobody competes in those divisions anymore. So it's kind of a dead division.
Okay. Can you explain what the SCO is, that squad common optic? Because that's something that must have come out after I got out.
So that's essentially it's a Trijicon. It's essentially a Trijicon VCOG. It's in first focal plane and it has a variable power scope. It's 1 to 8 power. So you don't have to dial all the way in. Like if you're hitting targets that are close, if you have close engagement targets, you can just drop it to 1 power and then burn through those targets as fast as you can. And then if you have targets that are out further, you can dial it anywhere from 4 power to 8 power, go through the whole spectrum from 2 to 8, and you're good. It just gives you more options out there based on the distance of those targets, and it allows your field of view to be a lot wider. So like if I'm at 8 power, I might not be able to see the target that's over to the right, so I'm going to dial it back to where I can still see the target good on the mill reticle, but it's within visibility, so I can just transition over to it.
Yeah, having a little better situational awareness. Is this the optic that's on the IAR?
Mm-hmm.
That originally came out with the IAR?
No, that was
okay.
No. It's a completely new optic system. I want to say they started outfitting them last year, the year before.
Gotcha. Okay, so then I've definitely not seen it. I'll have to take a look at that then. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's crazy being out, and you're gonna see this too. Now that I've been out for 4 years, rifle range has changed, optics are changing. Now I'm like that old guy, like back in my day.
I'd say that's the beauty of it. Like you left, and it was at a certain point, and now you're seeing, holy shit, they're starting to make advancements in the technology and in what they're doing. So they're going to be ready for the threats that are out there in the next conflict.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes with this Force Design 2030. I was just reading more into how the infantry TO, the table of organization, is shifting, where you're having more guys in a fire team. I think it's like one extra guy in a fire team, right? They've realigned how they do the squads and platoons and companies within the infantry battalions.
I mean, shoot, they're giving them drones now.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone about that the other day. I was like, dude, personal drones on the battlefield. Like, we had the little throwbots and stuff you could throw over the wall and drive around, or the little, like the big ones that like kind of EOD had and everything when we were in Afghanistan. But we didn't have any, like,
I mean, the reconnaissance capability that a squad is going to have, the ability to actually pinpoint targets and figure out what they're going up against, you can't beat it.
Mm-hmm. I think the first time I saw someone with a personal, like, drone was in 2015. I was working with some MARSOC guys, and one of them brought out basically a DJI quadcopter and just pulled it out and started flying. I'm like, whoa, that's fucking cool. I actually ended up buying I have one over there now. I actually ended up buying my own just to, like, have and play with. But now it's like you're saying, they're getting this kind of equipment down to levels that never would have had that before. Like, a regular infantry squad, why would they be carrying a drone around? But now they have these, I don't know, man. I've been reading into it. They have mothership drones where other drones connect to them, and like all this crazy shit.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy, man. It's like these mothership drones that other drones can come up to it and like connect to it and like recharge or whatever. And then the mothership flies, and it's like you get to a target area, and those drones can like release and then scan the target. Multiple drones are now scanning the target area. Some of them could be armed. It's just crazy. Like, I don't know. It's not the same military that I left, and it's kind of weird. Even talking about Anglico, I'm so used to the firepower control teams and the supporting arm liaison teams, but that's changed. I don't know if they have firepower control teams, which is the 4 or 5 man team that builds the SALT, the supporting arms liaison team. I think it's now called like an all-domain team or multi-domain team or something like that. I think they've re-task organized those guys as well, to have updated missions to kind of face this, like, I guess, technological threats and stuff that we're going to, start facing. Obviously, we're seeing the more and more countries use drones. Russia and Ukraine are both using kamikaze drones or using normal drones. We've seen
they saw it in Syria back in 2017. The enemy was using drones.
Yeah, the DJI ones were. Yeah, ISIS was the ones that really kind of made that a thing. It seems like they were like attaching grenades to the DJI drone where the camera would normally sit, and then wiring it to release a grenade. And they're still using those same tactics. Like Russia and Ukraine are still using that same stuff. And one that we kind of skip over is Azerbaijan and Armenia. You know, that was before Ukraine and Russia, but that's where we really started seeing like this kind of more advanced techniques by countries we wouldn't have, I guess, thought that could do that. I don't know, like using drones and stuff, or I don't know, man. It's just a weird world. I'll be honest, I'd hate to be in and be concerned about getting hit by a drone.
Oh yeah, it's something you can plan for it, but it's you have to train for it now. It's like now they're going to have to come up with new TNR task of, hey, how do we take out these drones? They're going to have to come out with new technology to take out these drones, and I know they're already working on that technology based on guys on the team was out there training for some of that.
Yeah, they have some anti-drone technology popping up in Ukraine and Russia and stuff like that, where they're using these weird laser guns to like shoot them down. I think it basically like confuses the communications going to and from it and just causes it to fall out of the sky, kind of deal. But yeah, it's crazy, man. And it'll probably be like IEDs, right? Like before IEDs were a thing. I mean, they've always been a thing. They just got rebranded from like landmines and booby traps to IEDs. But before it became like a huge thing in Iraq and stuff, it wasn't every deployment, every person's getting a class on what to look for IEDs, what to look for, you know, here's a pile of trash, could that be an IED? Here's a yellow jug, that could be an IED. None of that happened, but then we had to shift, and we had to shift not only teaching the individuals how to find them, how to seek them out, but then the technologies came out. Well, we have jammers. Now we have certain frequency jammers. Now we have, you know, stuff with edge detection to see if we can find pressure plate. You know, it's just all this crazy stuff. So I imagine drone warfare is going to like go along that kind of same path, you know?
Yep.
Is that, could you feel the shift the last couple years that you were in the military? Did it feel like there was a change? I mean, I guess the last couple years you were in was also during COVID, so I don't know if that really slowed down stuff, but
it slowed stuff down for the past couple months. For me personally, and for the guys on the team, like we're kind of in our own little world. We have our own thing going on. So I guess the best way of describing what it is that we do is we're essentially civilians who wear a military uniform and just travel the country and either compete or we train other people. So we're kind of in our own little world with everything that we're trying to develop. So it never really affected us. Like we focused on, hey, we want this on our gun, or we want this on our gun. Let's push the limits of our guns and see what we can kind of develop there.
So you're not worried about the noise. You're just focusing on the task at hand kind of deal. All right. So I want to shift, I guess, just a little bit, not really, but behind you is your ribbon rack and your medals underneath it. Can you explain? Everybody I've ever heard try to explain it in the Marine Corps, I feel like, has gotten it wrong. Every once in a while, you see someone with that third shooting badge on their alphas, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's this, it's that, it's whatever." Can you explain how people earn that distinguished marksman badge?
All right, so I'm not distinguished; those are just marksmanship medals that I've earned.
Okay.
And so, the best way to describe it is, all right, so you can earn medals going to Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, and those are what we would used to call the division matches. If you place within the top 10% of a division match, or a MIC as we call them, you are earning a gold, silver, or bronze medal. I want to say gold medals, it goes to the top 1%, and then from 2% to 5%, it's like silver medals, and then after that, it's bronze medals. And each one equates to a point value. A gold medal is worth 10 points, a silver medal is worth 8 points, and a bronze medal is worth 6 points. In order to go distinguished, you have to accumulate 30 points. And you can either do that through the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, or you can do that through civilian competitions. If it's a national level event, you earn the medal that has an eagle, globe, and anchor at the top of it. And that's usually done at like Camp Perry, Ohio, or any civilian competition where there's 150 people or more in your same division. And you can earn them at Marine Corps Championships. Marine Corps Championships is considered a national level event. Anything that's not national just gets, a medal without the Eagle Globe and Anchor.
Okay. Is this 30 points in a year, or 30 points just 30 points?
30 points is 30 points. Like we described going distinguished. When somebody goes distinguished, it's not a matter of just going distinguished. It's the journey it takes. Everybody has their own personal journey. I'm 6 points away from going pistol distinguished, and I'm 20 points away from going rifle distinguished. My goal before I retired was to go pistol distinguished. Whenever I took over the team as a staff in 2IC, priorities shifted, and so I wasn't focusing as much time on the gun, and I didn't shoot any of the marksmanship competitions, so I didn't go distinguished, and I'm okay with that. But because I'm retired, if I go finish in the top 10 or 15% at an action shooting competition and I get those points, I can go distinguished.
Okay. So how big of a deal is that within the shooting community, especially like the Marine Corps shooting community?
So in the Marine Corps shooting community, it's a big deal. Like, it's a huge deal. Like I said, those red books that are behind me, like, that details every Marine that has gone distinguished. The volume 1 goes to like 1962 or 63, and then volume 2 is the 1960s all the way up until 2014. When volume 3 comes out, that'll encapsulate all those people from 2014 on to whenever they decide to publish volume 3. So it's a big deal in that sense, and it's more of a big deal with the traditional shooting sports because it was the civilian marksmanship program that started the distinguished program. The Marine Corps the Marine Corps shooting team just kind of took what they had and kind of made it their own.
Okay. Do you guys work with the civilian marksmanship program at all? Is that still? I know it was a bigger thing back in the day. I don't know if it still is.
Not as much, especially now that the Marine Corps shooting team is going toward more the practical shooting disciplines. They're not going to change the style of shooting that they have. And I kind of always said we shouldn't be bound by one organization. This is our marksmanship program. We shouldn't copy everything that they have. We need to break out and become our own. Mm-hmm. So that's why we added, hey, if you earn the top 15% at a practical shooting match, you get marksmanship medals. Traditionally it was if you finish in the top 10% at a high power or pistol, precision pistol match, you're going to get a medal. We added the 5% buffer in the action shooting sports to make up for that. There's no such thing as a distinguished shooter in practical shooting.
Okay. So final question, I guess, on the shooting badges. Are you authorized to wear all of those different ones with your alphas or something? 3. What are the 3?
Whatever 3 you choose. Like if you're distinguished in pistol and rifle, you're going to wear those 2. And you can't wear any of the other ones. So with distinguished, if you're double distinguished, you can only wear the distinguished. But if you get a Lockheimer trophy, which is coming in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd place at Marine Corps Championships, you can wear that behind it. If you get a Marine Corps medal, which is the one with the Eagle Globe and Anchor, which is whether you're gold, silver, or bronze, that one's always going to go in front of any of the other ones just because it has seniority. Mm-hmm. So you can only wear 3 marksmanship medals at a time, though.
When you're wearing those in uniform, how many times do you get stopped and people ask you what that is? Like, what is that?
It happens quite often. It happens all the time whenever we're like in Okinawa or Camp Pendleton, stuff like that, because we wear them in our Charlies. Like we're authorized to wear them in our Charlies. Like if I go to Mainside Quantico and I have my Chucks on, which was hardly ever, I think 5 times total.
Nice.
We get stopped more whenever we wear the campaign cover. Like people are like, "Oh, you guys are drill instructors?" No, man, we're in the Marine Corps shooting team. You guys wore those? Yeah, we actually wore them before the drill
Yeah,
instructors.
yeah. Is there? I always wondered if there's a little bit of rift between the shooting instructors on like Paris Island and the drill instructors. Like, you didn't earn the Smoky Bear. Like
I had no idea,
it's
but
funny.
like I was down in Fort Banning a few years back, and we were at the Inter-Service Pistol Championships, and like all us guys on the team, we went into the PX. It was summertime. We had our sleeves down. We had and we had our campaign covers in our hand. Next thing you know, I see this Marine just beelining straight toward one of my Marines. Then he saw that I was a senior man, and I stepped in, and I was like, "What's going on, Master Sergeant?" He's like, are you guys drill instructors? Nah, we're the shooting team. Like he had that pissed off face, like he was gonna yell at one of my Marines, and he saw me, and he's like, "What's going on here?" Like,
Yeah,
oh, inter-service pistol championships. We're just, he was a former drill instructor
he's about
too.
to protect the pride of the drill instructors.
Yeah.
How can you look like a bag of ass with that campaign cover?
Yep.
That's funny. Yeah, that is what it is, man. That's what senior people do in the military. I remember one time I went to the PX. This was like days after I got back from Afghanistan, and I got promoted to staff sergeant while I was there. So I had to get all my uniforms tailored and the new chevron sewn on. And I don't know what happened. This was like in that period at Camp Lejeune where it was like you had to wear service Charlies on Fridays.
Yeah.
And it was a Friday, and I was going to the PX. And this first sergeant, as I was walking up, this first sergeant pulls up next to me in his car. He's like, "Hey, Devil Dog, come here." And I'm like, "Oh, God." And I come over there. He's like, "Staff sergeant." Like he saw I was a staff sergeant. He's like, "What are you doing, man? I just kicked a bunch of people out of the PX for not wearing the proper uniform. And here you are in camis. What the hell?" And I was like, "Hey, get it, first sergeant." I was like, "I just got back from Afghanistan and I got promoted. So I'm waiting on my uniforms to get, taken care of or whatever." And he's like, "You can't be walking around out here out of uniform." Like,
I hate that.
He's like, "What are you gonna do about it?" He's like, "What are you gonna do to take care of this?" And I'm like, "What do you want me to do, dude? Like, I don't
have them.
I've been home for 3 days. I don't, you got to give me time to get everything fixed." But that's the kind, yeah, that mentality is kind of lame. That's probably something you don't see a lot of when you're with the shooting team.
No.
Even though you're in Quantico where all the higher ups are at, but.
Yeah, well, we're on the other side of Quantico, so they throw us in the back, which is nice. Like we don't ever come out and see the light of day of main side Quantico.
See, I was going to ask if you guys were like a high visibility thing that people came to see you and visit you and watch.
On occasion, like we've hosted the Commandant of the Marine Corps a few times. We do a lot of the congressional shoots that come out. And so we are high vis in certain instances, but most of the time we're kind of on our own. Like it's only when people want to come out and shoot, then they're like, "Hey, we need the Marine Corps shooting team out here." And the biggest thing is just acting like normal people. Like we don't do the dog and pony of like trying to like be all prim and pristine. No, we show it through our work ethic by showing up to the range, having the range set up, having all the weapons staged, ready to go, and then being able to instruct with precision, showing them what is capable with the weapons that we have in front of them, and then letting them do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes sense, man. It's good stuff. Again, I'm going to come back around to the social media stuff. I think it's really great what they're doing. I think it's cool putting out the competitions and the training and stuff to, one, educate the force, that this is an opportunity that's there that may or may not be available to them depending on what their own schedule's like, but it's there. But it also shows like people outside of the military, some of the different options that are, available if you do come in the military. And honestly, like that's one of those incentives. It's like, hey, if you join the Marine Corps, you could join at some point you can join the shooting team. Like that would be, for me, I'd be like, man, that's, if it's like all these little things that you don't know about before you join, if they would that are like all the cool stuff. It's like, if you guys told people more about that stuff, you probably wouldn't have as much of a recruiting issue. Yeah,
you're right. And it's like, I've had a few phone calls, and we shoot with a lot of junior shooters, and it's like a lot of the junior shooters come toward us a lot more now. Mm-hmm. There's the Army Marksmanship unit, which those are like great individuals. They're not just great, great shooters. Like they're the best in the country because that's what their job. They stay on the Army Marksmanship unit for 20 years. And they're really solid people, really solid shooters, but we bring a different side. Like not everybody on the shooting team, nobody on the shooting team is like this big high and tight guy that's like, super like rigid and everything. No, we're just regular dudes. We go out there and like a lot of the parents, allow their kids to come and shoot on our squads and they get to see a different side of the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And they get to see what we do and the interactions have always been great.
That's awesome.
Like shoot, there's a competition out in Missouri at the Gadsden Shooting Complex, and it's called Generation 3 Gun, and it's a match just for junior shooters. Like adults shooting it as well, but it's raising funds for junior shooters to keep doing what they do because it is a financial burden. When you're talking about, at a 3-gun match, I'll be shooting 600 to 800 rounds in one weekend.
Wow.
2-3 days. And, I have a $4,000 pistol. I have a $2,000-$3,000 rifle. I have a shotgun that's over $1,000. That's a financial burden on those parents.
For sure.
And, but it's teaching their kids a skill and a discipline and getting them somewhere where they're developing that mental focus at such a young age. And so this match is an opportunity for those kids to shine. And, our team was out there helping, having a good time shooting with some of the junior shooters, teaching them, teaching the mental focus side of things. And shoot, at the end of the day, like at nighttime, like they always do like not a banquet, but like kind of a get together where they hand out prize tables and all that. And there's a video of a couple of my Marines teaching like 6-year-old kids who were just there with their parents, like fire and movement and just having a blast with it.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. I think I think introducing kids to responsible gun, not ownership, but handling and stuff is hugely important. I started when my own son was real little, probably 5 or 6. I was like, hey man, this is a gun. You're not allowed to touch it. Well, I told him, I was like, you can touch it anytime you want, as long as I'm there, as long as you ask me first. Yep. That's the only time. Any other time you're not allowed to touch it. You got to ask me first. And I'm not going to tell you no unless there's a good reason. And I kind of showed him that. And then as he got older, it's like, okay, here's the BB gun. And then we're going to treat it like an actual gun. You're going to have the rules and stuff like that. And I don't know. And that's probably not the traditional way of bringing up a kid around firearms and stuff like that. But
that's how I did it. And I think it's a responsible way. My daughter, she's 8 years old. She's been around guns her whole life. I can keep my gun on the coffee table and she's not going to touch it. Mm-hmm. I pulled out one of my 22 bolt guns and I was like, hey, I want to teach you about this. I was like, but the only time you're going to learn about it is when I'm there. And so she was racking the bolt back and forth. I was teaching her about trigger control and, taking her out to shoot it. And, it's when you're doing it in a relaxed environment and they understand that this is a dangerous weapon, but as long as I'm responsible with it and doing this with an adult, you can't go wrong. Now, you can't plan for every scenario of what might happen, but as long as they understand safe gun handling skills, you're doing the right thing.
It's a tool, and you have to understand what the tool's used for and how to handle the tool. If I set a hammer on a table and told a 6-year-old that he's not allowed to touch it, but I'm going to keep it sitting there where he sees it all the time, and I never let him touch it, he's probably going to grab it when I'm not around and break something. And the same, and the same kind of principle should be applied to firearms. If you have them in your home, you shouldn't try to hide them away because it's going to be this weird, interesting thing that a kid wants to see and check out. You should introduce it to them with the understanding like, hey, this is serious. This is something that you can be a part of. You can see and touch, but I'm going to be there with you until you're old enough to, do it on your own. So yeah, I'm from Indiana, man. My high school friends had shotguns, in their cars. Someone went hunting before school started. I remember one of my friends, I think he was a sophomore. I might've been a junior. It was after some school shooting or something happened. This was probably 04, 03, 04. I was out, or I just graduated, actually. He was probably a junior. He got expelled from school for the year because he had his hunting rifle in his truck in the parking lot. Something he had done many times before, other people had done before, and but yeah, because of politics change and rule, all that stuff, now he got branded as basically a criminal for doing something that he'd been doing, like you said, his whole life, going out, maybe try to go hunt and get something before school starts. Like
that's ridiculous.
It's so much different. Like, I also grew up in Tennessee from elementary school, middle school. I was in Tennessee, and in middle school in Tennessee, you could take a hunter safety course as one of your electives, because you could always pick one class. And if you took that class, at the end of the semester, the football coach that taught it took you out to the football field, and they shot clay pigeons on the football field. Imagine trying to get that going in a middle school today. They would be like, "What are you talking about?" But
Can't even bring a BB gun.
But the reality is now you got all these 7th or 8th graders. I think you had to be 8th grade. You have all these 8th graders that now have practical experience learning from someone what is safe, what's not safe. Not just about, it's a hunter safety class, so not just about the firearm itself, but going into the woods, why you wear orange blades, like the stuff like that. So we've kind of strayed away from that in a lot of places because people think it's dangerous to like introduce kids to these concepts, but it's like, dude, it's dangerous to not, because now we're just letting them figure it out on their own. It's not like these things are going away. There's more guns in America than there are Americans. Like,
well, now people are going into the woods and they're not knowing, one, how to handle their firearms, and two, not knowing the steps that are necessary that you have to know whenever you go out and hunt. They're not learning those skills. I mean, I didn't really start hunting until 2012, but I had people around me who taught me how to hunt. Mm-hmm. I'm a city boy. I'm from Miami originally, so like,
you don't seem like you're from Miami at all.
Oh, I know. But most people are like, "Well, what sports do you like?" I'm a hockey fan, and you're from Miami.
What's going on over here? They don't even have hockey in Florida, do they?
Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, see, I'm way off.
Well, and when I went to boot camp, it was a culture shock to me. I had never been around so many white people in my life.
Really? Yeah. I guess you're down there with like, it's all like Cuban population is massive, right? I've actually never been to Hawaii. Or not Hawaii, Miami, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah. I call it North Cuba.
Yeah, everybody I've talked to said it's a great time down there. It's just a different lifestyle though.
It's a great place to visit, horrible place to live.
I've heard that. I've heard multiple people say it's like Vegas. You don't want to spend more than 2 days there. After that, it just becomes not good. Whatever's happening. So
I miss the food, and that's about it.
Oh man. Yeah, I just, again, I'll say this and then we can wrap it up, but getting people involved in shooting sports is important. As getting them involved as youth is important. I was in Boy Scouts. There was shooting programs within the Boy Scouts. There's obviously like the merit badges and stuff like that. I don't know if that's still a thing or not. Obviously, the Boy Scouts kind of have a bad name right now. But it was a great opportunity for me. I didn't have any of the issues that obviously some of these other people had while they were in, but it was a great opportunity. And it was like, I think that was my actual first introduction to shooting was in the Boy Scouts. And that's where I kind of learned about it there. And then, just kind of expanded on with my family and stuff. So any kind of information getting put out there is great. And I think what the Marine Corps shooting team is doing is great. And I think the Marine Corps in general is getting better at social media. I think it started with the gunner at 2nd Marine Division started putting out videos like 8 years ago, 7 years ago on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. I used to watch all of those. I thought those were super cool. And it was weird seeing a government official, a gunner, I think he was a Chief Warrant Officer 5 or 4. Yep. He was either 4 or 5. He was
a division gunner.
Yeah. So having a guy like that just kind of relaxed talking about the rifle. There was one where he like cooked bacon on the suppressor. It was like, the fact that this guy is doing this is just crazy. Because if I was at the range and I threw a piece of bacon on my suppressor,
JP.
Yeah. So it's just cool that they slowly embraced it, and the word is getting out. And I'm glad you came on the podcast. We didn't talk about any of your career in the infantry or anything like that. We've been talking about the marksmanship program this whole time, but
we could do a recap at another time.
we might have to, man. It's been It's been a valuable conversation. I think it's going to enlighten a lot of people on what the Marine Corps, the marksmanship program looks like and how they can get into it. What's the best point of contact if someone wants to find more information?
So you can go on Facebook and just type in USMC Shooting Team, and that's the Marine Corps Shooting Team's Facebook page. There's also an Instagram page, which is the @ USMC Shooting Team. I had my own podcast, as I briefly mentioned before, and it's called it's 3GIQ, 3-Gun Intelligence. So just type in 3GIQ podcast, or in Instagram, just put in 3GIQ. And you'll find it. It has like an eagle, globe, and anchor, but it's a reticle pattern where the globe would be. Mm-hmm. So that has a lot of information. We have guys come on from the team all the time on that podcast. We've had a couple like national champion shooters like JJ Rakaza come on. We've had guys from the Army Marksmanship unit come on as well. And so it's just a way that we can put information out there, not just for Marines, but the civilian public, to let them know what the Marine Corps shooting team does, and other competitors as well. Mm-hmm. Just a source of information.
Can people reach out to the shooting team on Instagram? Do they answer the messages?
They do. Okay. They actually, Facebook or Instagram. They can do that if they want to do more of an official email. Nicholas.capco@usmc.mil. He's the current staff and COIC of the shooting team. Great dude, good friend, and a good source of information if you want to learn.
All right, man. And where can people find your podcast?
So you can, I can shoot you the details. I'll send you the link, but okay. If you go on our Instagram page, it has like a home port thing to where you can get it. But we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, Google, we're all on the major platforms. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, I will. I'll throw any links that you want. Just send them over, and I'll put them in the show description. That way people can check it out. As always, check out my Instagram @FormerActionGuys, @FormerActionNews. Both of those. Check me out on Patreon if you want to donate to the show and support. Patreon.com. Look it up, Former Action Guys there. And jkramergraphics.com. If you want a custom t-shirt, hit me up. And that's it. Really appreciate it, man. It's been a good conversation.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.